Welcome everyone to today's conference. First question is from Reed Wilkins. Reed, just waiting for you to unmute. You should be good. Go ahead, Reed.
Yeah, thanks, Andre and Dave. Thank you. Good to see you again. It's obviously a strange sort of lead up to this potential finish to the season. You've organized and coached a lot of training camps, but the first game out of that camp is a preseason game where the stakes aren't the highest in the world. How does preparation for this camp change given what we've been through and given that the first game back is, going to be game one of a best-of-5 series?
Well, preparation is going to be key because, like you say, you're going to go from a pause to 100 miles an hour in a hurry. So we've talked to our players quite a bit how we would like to arrange a camp. Obviously, we're still pretty generic with timelines and things like that. But I think it'll be a combination. We have some veteran players that understand what it takes when you get in the playoffs and how hard it's going to be. And we also have some young legs that I think coming out of a break should be ready to go. And, it's going to be interesting because it's not like a training camp in the sense that you have 60 players and you're looking at a lot of people. You know who you have, you know where most of the parts fit. Training camp will be to see if there's a player or two that is going to jump up and looks like he's chomping at the bit ready to go, and the possibility of maybe somebody falls behind, and hasn't come in as good a shape as they should be after the pause. So those are all things we'll monitor. The good thing is we know our group well. We'll go into it. We'll have a little bit of a refresher course on exactly how we want to play and how we want to go about things. We'll look at some our opponent coming up, Chicago, and figure out if there's some things that we have to be aware of there, and we'll be ready to play.
Thanks. Next question, Adam Cook from CTV. Go ahead, Adam.
Dave, how have you had much time or have you allowed yourself to kind of think about facing Chicago? I mean, a team that was on the outside of the playoff picture and now has a very real shot here. That could be a dangerous club you're facing, but I wonder how much you've thought about the Blackhawks in a best-of-5.
I didn't put a lot of thought into it until it became a reality of what might come down the pike. We've talked to our players and our coaches. I've talked a lot about us preparing our team, making sure we're ready before we look at anybody else. So that'll be the first step in the process. But you obviously look at your opponent. There's you look at Chicago. There's the thing that jumps out at you is the championship pedigree that they have in Taves and Kane and Keith. They're top players. They're elite players. So you have to respect where they've been, what they've done. But again, we're going to really concentrate on what we have to do and hopefully what we have to do to be successful. But you'll also know your opponent well. And like I said, just about training camp, we'll go into it. We'll be prepared. Hopefully we'll be prepared for what we have to do, but also, looking at Chicago and seeing if there's anything that we have to make sure we're aware of going into the series.
Next question, Mark Spector, sportsnet.ca. 1 second, Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Dave, two quick things. First of all, did you have a regular schedule of conversations with your team? Like, was it once a week? Was it twice a week? Can you coach them up during those things?
Depending on the situation, if we knew there wasn't much information coming out, there was some times when we missed a week or two, but we probably had, I think we've had 4 or 5 different calls with our whole group, not just our players, but with our staff. With the coaching staff, we've had more than that. But, you just try to stay in touch with people. I've stayed in touch with some players individually as well as with the group. So, I just try to make sure everybody's on the same page, what we're thinking. I tried to use different kind of marks as we went along in the pause as to try to give them an idea where it would fit in a normal summer, so it's, I'll give you, for instance, this last month, say before any kind of training camp would start in July. It's similar to an August in a normal year. So what would you be doing in August? Are you skating on your own? Are you skating with a bunch of guys, as this phase 2 comes in? So we're trying to keep it as normal as possible in a very unusual situation and make sure our guys are comfortable with coming back and comfortable with what our expectations are.
You're going to have a bunch of guys here. Like, you're going to have at least 8 regular NHL defensemen, and everybody's healthy. Do you just go at it and start with the lines and D pairs that you ran at the pause, or how much competition will there be for jobs here in terms of guys making the lineup?
Well, it's a little different in the fact that you know exactly what you have. It's not like a training camp where you come in and all of a sudden, somebody catches your eye that you don't really know. So you know what you have. That being said, there's going to be some guys that are, seem like they have an extra jump in their step that are going to maybe push ahead. And there might be some guys that are the pause is taking a toll on their body. So we'll monitor those, and we get however long we get to go through a camp, we'll look at it and try to figure out exactly what gives us the best chance to win. Some of it we'll look at our opponent, if there's certain matchups that we think that might be better than others. So there's a lot of thinking going into it. So if your question is, do I have the lines on paper right now and we're all set to go, that would be premature.
A reminder to everyone, if you want to ask a question, use raise hand. Daniel Nugent-Bowman, The Athletic. Go ahead, Daniel.
Hi, Dave. Nice to see you and talk to you again. I'm assuming you're not in Edmonton, and you please correct me if I'm wrong there. But when would you anticipate coming back? I know there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't even know when phase 2 and coaches can't participate. So that's question 1. And to kind of piggyback off Mark Spector's second question, in particular with Caleb Jones, and I'm just curious if you kind of know where he would fit in, but also where are the biggest strides, or what are the biggest strides that you've seen him make over the course of the year?
Well, first of all, I have a summer place in Minnesota that I've been at for about a week now. I was scheduled to come into Edmonton on last Monday, and when things got pushed back a couple of weeks, I just held my ground here a little bit. We'll see, wait till phase 2, but I'm hoping to get to Edmonton sometime in the next couple of weeks. If everything continues to go the right way, how we're hoping. Caleb is a young player that came in, and he's really, I think his expectations of being an NHL player are finally to the point where he understands he is an NHL player. And when a player gets to that, they don't play nervous. He plays. He knows he belongs, and that's the strides he took this year. Good skater, moves the puck well. Still has some young player in him, but sometimes that's not a bad thing. That energy that comes out with that. So we'll see how it goes in camp here. We'll come in. We'll give everybody a chance to get up and going, and we'll probably use. I'd be amazed that coming out of a long break like this, you don't use all your defensemen and all your forwards you have. But we'll see how it goes. And to say where he fits right now, I can't tell you that. Just like I was talking with Speck earlier, but we'll see where he gets to in camp. And he's a good NHL player now. He's a player that's come on, and I give him credit for the work he's put in, and he's anxious to get going. I know that.
Next question, Josh Clipperton, Canadian Press. Jason Gregor after that. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Dave. I'm just wondering from a coaching perspective, what you think about the prospect of coaching in empty buildings. I saw Barry Trotz mention on the radio in New York the other week that coaches might have to be a few rows behind the bench. Careful what you say to the refs or the players because there's no fans to drown out the noise. Have you sort of played through any scenarios through your head yet?
You know what, you think about it, but I don't know if you're really going to know how it's going to be until you get in the situation. And, depending on the building you're in, where everybody else is sitting, the one good part of it, there'd probably be less screaming on the bench because you're yelling a line or whatever to make sure everybody knows that they have to go. And sometimes the atmosphere around is so loud that you have to making sure you're yelling both ways on the bench. So there'll probably be less of that. The players will be a little more attentive of what you're saying rather than just getting drowned out. You think about it, but I don't know if you're really going to know how it is until you get into the situation. So we'll read and react when we get there. I think it will be a different experience for everybody, coaches and players. And the biggest thing I'd like to see is how is the energy and the excitement of the game itself. Because a lot of times that can be driven, the emotion can be driven by fans and driven by noise and driven by the emotion that's going around the building. And can the players, adjust to that? Can they bring their own emotion to it? It's going to be a factor that's, I'm interested to see how teams respond to that.
Next question, Jason Greger, TSN Radio. Go ahead, Jason.
Hi, Dave. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Jason.
The first one, I don't know, have you got any clarification on if it's in Vegas or Vancouver? Is it automatic the first game's 12, 4:30, and noon of the city you're in? Do you know anything about that? And would you think it's possible to start games earlier than 12 noon of the city you're playing in?
That's the first I've heard of any times, Jace, so I haven't put much thought into that. I like afternoon games or early games. There's some players that like it and there's other players that don't. So we'll just, that'll be another read and react when we get into it. It's, everybody's going to be in the same boat. So the quicker you can adjust, if you don't like it, the better off you're going to be.
Next question, Josh Clipperton, Canadian Press. Go ahead, Josh.
Hey, Dave. Yeah, just to follow up. We're going to get on the other side of this at some point, whether it's a vaccine or something else, and life will come back to relative normal. I'm just wondering if you think the definition of what makes an athlete or a hockey player, quote unquote, tough, if that's going to change. We hear every year about a flu bug going through a locker room and guys playing through stuff. I'm just wondering in the future, you think that, teams or players are going to be much more wary about that aspect of health in the locker room and all that goes into that?
I think it will, just because society will is going to change that way. So I think things like that will. When you talk about, I think players, and just going from my own experience, like injuries and playing tough is less about sickness and more about injuries. Like, can you play with a broken finger? Can you play with a crack in your foot? Can you play with a sore shoulder? I mean, those are things that I think are inherent in hockey players, that they find a way to get through those things, especially in playoffs. But when you're dealing with an illness, sickness, and the pandemic, those are serious issues that you have to. It doesn't matter if you're a tough hockey player or not. You're going to read and react and listen to the doctor's advice as it should be. It's easy. I had a lot of games where I hit a broken finger or something like that from doctors because I didn't want them to know, so because they wouldn't let me play. But when you get sick, you're going to have to tell people, and that's just the way of the new world.
Next question, Adam Cook. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, hi, Dave. I'm just wondering, when you're kind of looking down the road, we don't know when everybody's going to get back to the ice, but given the stakes and the fact that every team's got to hit the ground running, what's your best guess of what the pace will be like in the games? Like, is it possible that it could be perhaps more intense than what we've seen in previous playoff years, given the scenario?
I think it will be intense. My first reaction it may be a little bit sloppy because you're not, when you're in the regular season, you're building up to that playoffs and you're trying to hit your peak rate at the right time. There's going to be no build up here. You're going to have to hit the ground running. So I think there'll be lots of intensity. I think there'll be emotion from the players, even if there isn't any from the fans. There'll be emotion from the players to get up and going, but I think you could see some mistakes like a preseason game where it's you're not in rhythm. So the key for that is we're going to have to prepare as best we can in training camp through some scrimmages, some things like that, to try to get as close to a level of game that we can, so it doesn't shock your body when you get into that game.
Couple more questions. This one, Patrick Henry, Radio-Canada. Go ahead, Patrick.
Dave, I'm a little curious about what you do with your time. Do you still think hockey 24/7, or you allowed yourself to take some time off?
No, you're thinking about it every day, because I've told some people it almost feels like the year that there was a lockout, where you feel like you're a doctor on call. You're just waiting for that call to come. And, you know, as things go and as timelines get pushed back, you recognize there's not much to do. But our staff and everything has done, we've done a lot of work on video. We continue to find ways to maybe improve our team, some tweaks coming out of the pause that we can put in our lineup or in our game plan that might help us. So you stay engaged in it, but it's a different time for all of us. And like I say, during the lockout, you always felt like you were ready to go, but you didn't get to go anywhere. And that's what it feels like right now a little bit.
And a final question, Rob Tichkowski from Post Media. Go ahead, Rob. Microphone should be working.
All right, thanks. Hi, Coach. I'm just wondering.
Rob, how you doing?
Good, how are you? I was just wondering how much stock you put in how guys were playing before the shutdown, or has the break been so long that pretty much everybody has to start with a clean slate? And just secondly, some players are notoriously slow starters. So how much time can you afford to give somebody to get up to speed when you're talking about such a short series to start things out?
Well, you're hoping a training camp is hard enough where it takes all the short or all the slow starter out of them, hopefully. But no, the pause has been a while, so you're going to have to see how players react coming back. And you know, you're probably going to get some players that are maybe not as good as they were, and you're probably going to get some players that are more motivated, especially ones that had injuries, to jump back and get going. But like I said earlier, we're going to use training camp to really you know the players, but you have to evaluate what they're doing and what their conditioning level is and where they're at right now, to make sure that they're ready to go on day one, because it's a different day one. It's not, you're not going to be able to tiptoe in. You're going to have to be all in right from the first drop of the puck, and we hope we'll be ready to do that.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thanks for doing this. Thanks to members of the media for joining us today. That brings an end to today's conference call. Video files and audio files will be sent out shortly. Have a great day and stay safe.
Thanks, guys. Take care.